possible, any problems you faced and how you've overcome those problems as you build the airplane while you're flying it.
Yeah, I'm gonna do that, but for some reason I'm on this conference and they want me to leave this room because they resetting for something. So
Okay.
can I take a little break and find another place?
Yeah, sure. Absolutely.
Tell us, maybe, if you don't mind, if I can go, maybe it's about just tell us, maybe I can answer some questions.
Sure. Yeah, so I mean, Brave One is also a really cool initiative. I've had a lot of friends in the Ukrainian military complain about a lack of centralization in terms of developing new tech, which Brave One seems to respond immediately to. And so, I really the same question is, if you could walk us through how the program got started and how it's going so far.
Actually, that's, you've mentioned already, army of drones, and it showed us that, you know, making the sphere to develop, it can bring a lot of results. And then thanks to this initiative of army of drones, we've seen how many defense tech projects we have in Ukraine, and we have seen that a lot of them are very and extremely effective. So, and we've decided, you know, to build like a system to help all the Ukrainian defense tech in one place to develop and to appear on the front line. So our main idea is together, everybody, all stakeholders, all participants actually of this initiative, you know, to help them to appear, to be. So we just took together Ministry of Digital Transformation, we took Ministry of Defense, we took General Staff, we took Ministry for Strategical Industries, Council for National Security and Defense, and Ministry of Economy. So we gathered together and we made like one big platform to actually boost all Ukrainian defense tech projects, to appear them, to give them possibility and all they need to develop.
And is there, this is really for you and for Alex, is there a particular project that has been worked on that is particularly successful that you would point to as a landmark success for the programs?
Well, at this point, I don't think we could name this project, like, but only we just launched 2 months ago, but we have some companies that I don't know, more mature stage. And we just got announcement today that how many companies were allowed to be, what's this Ukrainian, I know it's Ukrainian, but I'm trying to translate it. So they get permission for being used in by as a military product by Ministry of Defense. Natalie, how many products you mentioned today they got this permission?
3. It's one company, but it's 3 products.
So I think we have this, I would call this intermediate success. So, well, we're moving forward, and we have a couple of KPIs. One of them, it's pretty simple. It's how many grants did we issue to the companies. I think the first grant we're going to give in 2-3 weeks from now. Another KPI is how many companies went through the process of Brave One and achieved or have gotten a permission to be used as a military product by government. And I think the final, and I think the most important KPI is how many companies are or have gotten a procurement contract from government. This is our goal. So one of the major goals of Brave One is to speed up, create a fast track for the private companies to get a procurement contract from Ministry of Defense, because I don't know, this usually takes 3-5 years. Well, it certainly was. It's how much time it was taken before full-scale invasion. And right now our goal is to make it, I don't know, less than 3 months, or I don't know, maximum half a year. So 5-6 6 times less.
And how are you doing that? How are you increasing the speed so radically?
Well, part of this is the regulation. So we need to make sure that on government level, on law level, on decrees level, there is no there are no provisions that say that this procedure may take, I don't know, a year, or we may need to make sure that according to the law, there is no bottlenecks that give, or this creates this I don't know, enormous amount of time that they have to wait for, or vice versa. If you see that it takes forever, we have to make changes to the law. So we have to limit them and say this is maximum time for this process is, let's say, 60 days, not more. And according to the law, if you're representing government, you cannot keep those paperwork, for example, this paperwork, more than 60 days. So there are a number of things that we already did to speed it up. This is a famous Decree 345 that fast-tracked all the drones development it was done together by Ministry of Economy, Ministry of Digital Transformation, and Ministry of Defense. So this process now really takes much less time. This is the first part. Second part is actually depend on the human factor. So we're trying to, I don't know, create an environment where people are motivated and they I don't know, smart enough, they motivated enough to do things quickly. I'm speaking maybe general, but there's a huge problem with sometimes with people that are on a place and they, for some reason, they could keep, I don't know, paperwork for months, and I don't know, maybe because they following their own agenda, but there's a lot of efforts to change such people and put right people in the right place so they won't interfere but help.
Can you talk more about perhaps how you are doing that? Is it incentives? Is it replacing people? How do you encourage government bureaucrats who are naturally want to move very slowly to move quickly?
Well, that's quite an interesting process. Well, it's because like you just see that you identify a bottleneck and you see if it's a specific person, you basically approach them and I don't want to use the word threaten them, but you basically tell them that if you cannot do that, do this, that there are other people who able to do your job, so you will be replaced. And our goal is to win, and we cannot afford losing so much time because you cannot do your job in specifics in design at pace, in a pace that we design or business expect. So you're just ineffective, and I think it's more like a business approach. And there's no like political preferences or I don't know if you know this person or not. It's just the result. If you can't deliver, just go away, because the country cannot afford this. So, and also finding the right people is also a challenge. It's actually a big challenge. But we have people who spend time on the front lines since 2014, and they learn a lot. Some of those people are coming back from that started after February 24th. So, and they have natural motivation to fight the enemy. So we're trying to, if you replace people, and you might want to replace with someone who deeply understands what's going on there on front line.
Mm-hmm. And your ministry is quite young and has attracted a lot of people who were former entrepreneurs. Is that also part of the process, that the whole ministry has an and energy and economic know-how to get the job done?
Yeah, I think that's a part of it, and this includes myself. I mean, I also came from business, so um, a lot of people in the Ministry of Digital Transformation have business background. Of course, we have part of a group of, I think maybe like 30-40% of people that understand deeply government job. They didn't have any business background, but it's fine, because together we make each other stronger. So we have people who understand how to run projects, and at the same time we have people who understand how government works. So combining those two, it's actually a recipe for the result. Because usually, if you just let business people rule the government, it's high probability that's going to fail, because they're going to stuck in some stupid shit and do things not properly, and then be prosecuted, because you have to do a lot of according to law. If you let only people who has public administrative background, they don't understand how to put, I don't know, agile project together. They don't understand what Scrum is. They don't understand how to, I don't know, piece it together. They don't understand the business logic. They don't have many knowledge that they need to do in order to succeed. But they perfect in writing excuses in perfectly legal form. So combining those two actually give a result, and it's efficient. So, and we have this history of great projects that we implement, and I think most famous is DIA. It's government super app that nobody believed it's going to work. But combining those two things, like we have great government servants who spend in their life in a government, and great business people combined this experience and made it happen. So I think we're trying to implement this, I don't know, what's culture. I would say this culture throughout the government.
And how optimistic are you? Because obviously there are a lot of barriers. Do you feel like progress is being made overall?
Well, I think, yes, one of this is one of the, I don't know, results, like its average age of government. If you compare Ukraine's government age, which is around 40, and Russian, which is like, I don't know, 70, and maybe some European countries. No offense, but right, and I mean UK right now, and political career starts here after, I don't know, 45, 50 years. But here's the developed democracy. The country has its own institutions. You don't need this pace here, and it's fine. It's working in countries like Germany, Austria, UK, in the United States, and many others. But with the pace that we have now, I think young people are more, I don't know, resilient to that, more creative. They have more energy. So I think this is the one thing.
Yeah, no, that makes sense to me.
Yeah,
and then,
I also see the shift from, I think it's kind of internal. It's kind of our thing, but there was a lot of nepotism, if you know what I'm talking about. A lot of positions were taken by relatives or your cousins, or
this is at the Ministry of Defense or government in general, right? Yeah.
In general, yeah. If you take a government 10 years ago, it was actually like a clan. So a couple of clans. I think it's a perfect term for describing what's going on. So there was a head of clan with the high political power, and there's his people, and there's other clan, and they are foes, And sometime in the ministry, it was like minister is from one clan. His one deputy minister is appointed from his clan, and 3 others from other clan. Can you imagine the productivity of this, I don't know, institution? Of course, it's close to zero, because they compete with each other. They not aim to get to some goal and result to achieve something that they're supposed to achieve. What they do is just fight. You can hear me, right?
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense that you bring in newer people with newer ideas, and you get a more efficient process. To that end, actually, Natalia, I was wondering if you could talk us through how the actual process works so far in terms of, how you actually matchmake between companies, the Ministry of Defense, investors, and everyone else.
Yeah, sure. Actually, we are making, our project Brave One is more about bridges, because we name ourselves like bridge builders, because we're like making bridges between business and Ministry of Defense, between again business and investors, international organizations and state initiatives. So we are like making one big platform. And if you talk about our like flow between again, we keep in mind our main focus to make our best to make all most effective defense tech projects in Ukraine to appear in the front lines, and to make it as soon as it's possible. So we're making like this one platform, Brave One. Then we make a lot of support for developers to apply the forms and to keep them going. Then they go to general staff, and general staff making their expertise, and they're making prioritization of the projects. And actually they're the main partner to say what do they need and what do they don't need actually on the spot right now. If they need it, and if it's ready to be used, actually it goes to the fast track to the Ministry of Defense. If they need it, but it must be improved or scaled or something else, here we switch on other possibilities. We're switching grants, we're switching Ministry of Strategical Industries, they're helping with scaling. We switch Ministry of Economy, they're helping with the registration of their intellectual property or with the attraction of investments. Then we're switching like investors, we're switching partners, we're switching like educational projects as well that we have. So to make them all the help and mentoring to keep their projects growing, and to be ready again to go to the Ministry of Defense. And then if general staff says that they don't need it right on the spot, we put these projects to the so-called business expertise. And there are people that not working in the Ministry of Defense or Defense Forces, but they're in straight touch actually with the military needs, and they can as well with the innovations and as well with the interesting ideas and startups, so they can choose their ideas. Maybe there is not a need right now for the general staff, but there could be very effective and nice ideas we'd like to as well to develop and to have them in future, maybe because we understand that the needs of our defense forces, they can change, and they can change rather fast. So we want to not to lose any of the projects that might be interesting for us. As well, we have very big interest from international partners and funds who are looking to give all the support and help to our companies. And there we are making like legal frames how to cooperate with them in best modes, and because really we appreciate very much all the support we are receiving from different companies, from United States, from Europe, from all over the world, because really we understand that this is a very important time for Ukraine, and actually we have a lot of support.
And these are companies that are investing in the products, or they're donating out of sympathy for Ukraine?
Now we're talking about their helping with expertise, with their scaling, the technology transfer, with some lessons learned changing, exchange, but we understand that a lot of companies, they are ready to invest, and now we're making like that matching between developers and between investors. So we are preparing already some pitches. Now we are planning to go to London next week, and we have there as well Ukraine Recovery Conference. So we made as well a part of the catalog there with our invest products. So we're just keeping this track to be done.
Interesting. And this is primarily drones at the end of the day, not other forms of robotics, or how would you characterize it?
Not really. We have to say actually that we started this project from Army of Drones and with drones, and we understand that drones we have already big and effective results of drones. But Brave One, it's not about drones, only about drones. It's about electronic warfare, it's about artillery, it's about navigation, geolocation system, it's about artificial intellect, about demining, about actually management control systems, about different cybersecurity systems. So we are open for any defense tech project.
That's really interesting. And I've heard from some Ukrainians who work on drones that funding is, innovation is in large supply, but funding is always the hard thing, because the drones are shut down constantly. You have to raise money for the drones, and then to add more money for innovation and testing is really hard. So how do you go about raising money for these things, and do you see this as a challenge?
Actually, as Alex has mentioned already, we are starting with the grants. We will be giving our first grants in, I think, in 2, maximum 3 weeks. And first companies, they will receive their grants. And we believe it will be the first step to help them to develop their actual prototypes. Then we understand that we have a big interest from international partners, as well as from NATO Diana, and they are told already they are ready to support Ukrainian defense tech projects as well with the funding, with the money. So it's our tracks to be done. So we will start from our own grants, and we have, as I've mentioned already, some negotiations already with investors. They're really interested in investing in Ukrainian products.
And Alex, I guess the same question to you, if you could comment on any of the funding problems, or yeah.
Sure. Well, I think this is really indeed a problem for a number of companies, well, for a lot of companies, because in usual circumstances, funds, they don't have mandate to finance defense, any defense stuff. It's like, I don't know, drugs and like other things that they usually like red area for them. So you have to look for specific people, for specific funds that work on this type of investments, with this type of investments. Most of the well-known funds are out of picture for those companies, and we actually see that one of the values that we see in Brave One is exactly that we can find and identify investors and the funds and introduce those projects to them. So this is one of the things that Brave One providing already, and is going to provide more. We actually have taken a role to identify those funds, to talk to them, to explain them value. But first of all, identify, because, well, it's obvious that someone is investing, but they usually not going public with this. So now we have at least 2 working funds specifically designed for defense tech innovations, with the size of, I would say right now it's like $50 million allocated in both of those initiatives, but it's going to be more. And I know that some more coming. I don't think it'll be much, but what we're trying also to do is to establish relationship with the organizations like NATO Diana. So Ukrainian startups will have access there. We actually had a good conversation with them recently. So we're looking the way to they have this restriction because they can't fund startups out of NATO countries. But we working on solution how we can actually also be part of it.
And I imagine DARPA and IARPA would also be natural partners for you. I'm not sure if that works legally, but
DARPA, no, it's for different purpose. And I think DIU, Defense Innovation Union, could be a partner here, but they also have a limitation on countries. But that's fine. They even more open. They allow countries outside of US to become part of I don't know, part of their financial activities. Anyway, we think that the majority of money can come from private companies. We also looking to, it's early to say, but we trying to reach to investment arms of big military corporations like Lockheed Martin. They have investment arm, others, and maybe they will allocate or extend the mandate for Ukrainian companies. So that's, we need to show them landscape. And I think, and as always, it's time. They are not so fast in terms of like making decision. And usually they have like open to separate fund. It takes time. But I think they're, since Ukraine is not in NATO country yet, I think majority of investment can come from private institutions.
And these
again,
$50 million funds, those are funded by private institutions so far, or are
right,
those? Yeah,
right.
Gotcha.
At this point, I think I think the range of like availability of $50 or $100 million per year, it's enough for Ukraine at this point. Maybe next year a little more. So I don't think we have a huge problem with funding. So at this point, I think we in the right place with the right initiative, with the right partners. We'll figure it out. So like next year we have 100 or 200 million available for investment, and each year it will be more. And I totally believe in that, because we see the quality of companies and the solutions that they develop. So more we show, more attention we get. So more Ukrainian companies showing the capabilities of their solutions, more funds gonna come, and I think it's happening naturally.
That's really fascinating. And I know, I think you'll have to go in a moment. So Alex, before I transition to asking Sam some questions, are there any final comments you wanted to make?
I think one of the comments I would like to make is that I think after the war is over, and maybe probably a decade from now, Ukraine had a perfect chance to become one of the leading countries in the world when it comes to defense equipment, defense companies, defense products, including and especially defense technology companies. And this will be one of the top quality products. And I think I think Ukraine going to be in every military fair and exhibition in the world, providing a wide range of products with the top quality and with their reasonable price. Because if you now take any product, and if you add military, you automatically add billions of dollars to the cost. And I think we're also disrupting this part, because there are some products that we right now see in Ukraine that working, but their cost and time to market was, I don't know, dozen times less.
And I
Yeah.
think that's actually a perfect transition to what Sam, and who's written a recent report on how Russia has funded its drones in this war, which is in many ways a disorganized, top-heavy approach. You could argue it also has its own benefits. So, Sam, you've heard a lot about this, how Ukraine is doing all these innovative things to acquire new technologies. Could you briefly go over how Russia is approaching the same problem?
The majority of the Russian military acquisition is actually a state acquisition. And so a lot of the UAVs still used today within the Russian military actually come from the state. As Alex has indicated, a lot of these products actually are expensive and are manufactured by the defense industrial sector. But these are also relatively proven products for certain types of missions. Certainly prior to the invasion of Ukraine, Russian military did use a lot of these UAVs, mostly in intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance missions over Syria. And they actually did their job because anti-government forces in Syria didn't have sophisticated air defenses. They didn't have sophisticated electronic warfare defenses. It wasn't a comprehensive defensive environment that Ukraine has put up against the Russian invasion. And so Russian military probably went into Ukraine thinking that their short incursion is going to be very similar to their incursion in Syria. Basically, they will face no technological and military opposition that would be able to really interfere with their drone operations. At the same time, a lot of the technical innovation, a lot of the breakthrough technologies are actually used by the volunteers in Russia, by multiple volunteer organizations, by soldiers themselves. And we're talking about the use of quadcopters, small UAVs, and especially FPV type drones, which are becoming the mainstays right now at the tactical level for both sides. It is actually at the ground level where a lot of this innovation is trying to basically bubble up to the surface. But the MOD, the Ministry of Defense in Russia, is a very vertical, top-heavy organization. So it is unlikely that a lot of these inventions are actually going to make a significant impact on the Ministry of Defense's acquisition and research and development cycle. Even when the Russian military tries to copy some of the commercial technologies used by the volunteers and certainly used by the Ukrainians on a massive scale, they come up with something that is rather laughable and is open to widespread criticism. I'm talking about the Russian military's copy of a Chinese racing drone under the Russian label of Dobrynya. And a lot of the Russian volunteers themselves actually laughed at the whole invention because basically Dobrynya was a Chinese quadcopter under the Russian name. And so it's very interesting that a country that has such an extensive and massive defense industrial complex can really turn itself around fast enough to manufacture something light, cheap, expendable that is so needed right now at the front. At the same time, Russian military can fill some of its military UAV gaps by turning to Iran. And the acquisition of the Shahed drones, which are flying as a Geran label, actually give Russia the capability to strike deep into Ukraine and present a lot of problems and headaches for the Ukrainian air defenses in general. And these Shahed drones are relatively cheap, and each launch of the Shahed drones is much cheaper than the amount of energy and ammunition that the Ukrainian military has to expend trying to shoot them down. So it's a rather mix of approaches. Obviously, Russian military wants to have a monopoly on how it develops and uses certain types of UAVs. But in this war, the militaries don't often have the monopolies on how military operations are conducted. And so soldiers, volunteers can provide those who need it with commercial technologies. I will also add that this war is probably very unique with respect to commercial technologies and military technologies, really sort of intersecting, complementing, and sometimes even competing with each other. This may be a very unique conflict which may not repeat itself in the future. But right now, Ukraine certainly has the advantage in using technical innovation, especially when it comes to UAVs at the tactical level.
That's really interesting. Yeah. And Alex, it looked like you were about to say something.
I think that's a pretty much accurate analysis of what's going on. They have complete monopoly on all the defense things, and even companies that consider to be private, they somehow related to the government, and this really slows them down. But they have enough resources to, I don't know, like they what did with Shahed. So I mostly agree with, and I don't 90% agree with this analysis that's Samuel made. But our bet is different. We're betting on private sector, and I think that's where innovations are growing, and where the pace is different. It's much faster. And I think we as a government have to create the proper conditions and allow them to grow. So I think eventually one of the goals that actually was stated by us and Ministry of Strategic Industries, that after a couple of years, we need to have, I don't know, companies, let's say hundreds of companies with multi-million valuation, and 10 or 20 companies with $1 billion valuation working for the defense sector. We need to create those, and they will be driver of future innovation. So I think that we bet on different things, but it's also depends on the amount of resources that we have.
And I'm curious to ask, I mean, just because it's the question of the day, to what degree technology is changing the counteroffensive, either in terms of the threats to Ukrainian forces and attacking, or their advantages. And this is a question I think for anyone. Sam, Natalia, Alex.
I think it's a very interesting question. Certainly at the tactical level, we're seeing both sides use same type of technologies, like the FPV drones. But of course, the videos posted of successful attacks are just a portion of all the strikes that are launched. And a lot of the strikes probably also don't make it through because both sides field significant countermeasures. Russian electronic warfare has become more robust, more sophisticated, and more capable. And the Ukrainian military has recognized that earlier, that some of their drones cannot operate as planned because of the Russian EW at the front. There's evidence that some of that Russian electronic warfare is actually impacting how some of the Ukrainian drones are operating at certain sections of the front. And certainly Russian air defenses are also wise to the threat of these tactical drones. But the whole point of using the quadcopters and FPV drones is that they're actually very difficult to interdict. They're cheap, they're completely expendable, and they could be launched in very significant numbers. So even if some of them are intercepted by either side's defenses, the others can actually make it through. Right now, Russians are observing what Ukraine is doing. Russians are also launching their own aerial drones. I also want to add to something that Alex was saying about the resources. There are now a lot of Russian companies, actual aerospace companies, small scale industrial companies, which are also stepping up and are trying to manufacture cheap, expendable tactical drones at scale, but probably with a longer range. And so when the Russian defense sector actually steps up not at the top level, but actually at the volunteer level, they can actually deliver a workable product. Of course, the whole point is to scale this production. And all of these companies are looking to the Ministry of Defense for contracts. But it is unlikely to happen anytime soon because the Ministry of Defense has its own contracts, it has its own priorities, and has its own plans with what kind of UAVs are supposed to be flying.
And Natalia, same question to you, how the drones may shape the counteroffensive.
I just wanted to add actually a few things about Ukrainian possibilities, because we have really a big variety of drones and of solutions on our front line, because really each of us has its own families and friends on front line. So we have a lot of teams who have been making their products, and maybe one of the points of actually, and these drones and these products, they're going directly to the front line, even not on the Ministry of Defense level. So, and one of the points and one of the focuses of the Brave One is to find all the effective solutions which have been working already at the front line, to put them to the Ministry of Defense to scale them and to develop them, so more defense forces can use it, more defense forces can know about that. And you know, if we are talking about Ukrainian products, we really have a big variety, and sometimes it's more difficult for our enemies, even using the electronic warfare or whatever else, to understand what kind of product we have under their heads actually. So we are very good in big quantity of different solutions, and we are keep going, you know, to find the most effective and to develop them. But on the other hand, we have a lot of teams starting from the garage to do their products, and now scaling and now developing, and we have really big markets and opportunities for them.
And it's quite interesting, Natalia, because Ukraine has a long history of aviation and aviation engineers and all the manufacturing. Does that play into that role, or are these industries completely separate?
You know, this was actually full-scale war. So that's that knowing that already Ukrainians have been hardworking people and very creative people, and we have in there, you know, engineering talents and that science talents, and now we have a lot of teams who became to be defense tech product makers, coming from business, from IT, from I don't know, from logistics, from anything. So, and we have different teams who started to do that, because actually we are not about offensive measures, because we had to defend our territory and our people. So actually we have a lot of teams starting into knowing how, you know, how business is, how to do business actually. And actually one of the value of the Brave One project is to give those business teams understanding how to cooperate with Ministry of Defense, because we're not talking about classical military industries and solutions. We're talking about some new technologies. So, and we're just making again that bridge, and to understand how to, you know, to put that solutions and to put them to the Ministry of Defense, so the defense forces can use it. So, and that's why this big variety. And one more thing, that we have the highest level of motivation, because this is defense technologies. It's first of all about saving our people's life. That's why it's very important for each of us, and that's why we're working too hard. We're like looking for possibilities for people, for money, for donating, for fundraising, I don't know, for teams, for anything. And that's why we're very proud that finally states as well making this big project and led by 6 states institutions and organizations understands that now state is the entity which have to give support to these companies, because we want actually to develop them.
And the contrast, I feel like is probably a little bit apparent in Russia's case, Sam. You talked a little bit about these companies in Russia that are seeking to innovate. How is that? Are you able to characterize how that is going? It sounds like the Ministry of Defense is not particularly welcoming to them, but I'd be curious for any other reflections you had on that.
Yeah, a lot of these are self-initiated projects. A lot of these are basically volunteers who feel patriotic and want to help their fellow soldiers. Some of these products sometimes get even testing and certification from the MOD. Like one FPV drone under the name of Privet 82, which apparently was tested in Eastern Ukraine. But again, it's all about mass scale, and it's all about really kind of this large scale application of these technologies at the front. FPVs and quadcopters are needed by the many thousands, because many thousands are lost to the countermeasures. And right now, the absolute majority of the FPV drones are coming from the volunteers. In fact, a lot of Russian military commentators on Telegram are screaming for probably the 100th time at their respective governments and the military. I'm talking about the Russians, of course, how the MOD is not really using experience and the technologies from the volunteers for the front, how basically the volunteers have to do it themselves, how the Russian volunteers have to assemble these type of drones amongst different initiatives, and as Natalia said, in the garage on their own free time, and they still deliver. They still deliver a product that is actually used and is quite deadly. So the question from a lot of the volunteers is, why is it not scaled at the level of the Ministry of Defense? And as I already indicated, the MOD has its own plans. When a massive defense company like Almaz-Antey wants to build its own quadcopters, it's going to build its own quadcopter. When another company wants to build a large quadcopter called Sibirichok and sell it for more than 10 times its actual cost to the MOD, then that's exactly what's going to happen. A lot of people in the Russian military currently are not interested in very cheap and expendable solutions. They're interested in maintaining the pattern that existed before the invasion, that they develop multi-purpose, multi-use, multi-mission military systems with a long range and different qualifications than a quadcopter. And of course, there's a lot of places in combat for these type of systems. But right now, what's needed in Ukraine are both military grade as well as commercial type. And the Russian military is very slowly, very slowly warming up to the idea that the volunteer effort should be treated on an equal footing with the rest of the military industrial effort.
And to the quadcopter issue, Natalia, I was wondering if you could talk about this, because obviously Ukrainian frontline units are always going to use DJI, Mavics, Autel, etc. Do you see your initiatives as eventually replacing quadcopters, or is it more of the long-range, propeller-driven types of drones and other solutions?
You know, as Samuel told that we are as well very interested in the huge amount of drones, and we are welcoming any type of drones, even starting from intelligence drone and with the copters and with the bombers, everything that kamikaze drones. So anything we can, it's like, you know, like operations that we are using, like different types. And it's again about Ukrainians, because we are now opening, actually the market of defense technologies is opened already, and we are looking into private sector, and we are looking to the business sector, who is the main now producers of the technologies, because Ministry of Defense, yes, they're just making their contracts and they're buying that classical things, but they're very open for the new technologies and new solutions. Because if you talk about actually different wars, the First World War was artillery war, the Second World War was motor war, and this one is drones war. And we understand that we will, and these actually solutions and these drones, they are keeping improving each month, each 2 months, as well, that systems of the electronic warfare, that systems of navigation. So anything, actually, we keep improving it all the time, because we have very fast feedback from the front line. Because again, we have very impossible high motivation. And now I understand, as Alex told, that we have all the chances to become one of the leading countries in the defense technologies after the war finishes, because actually we are testing a lot, we're trying a lot, and we understand how we can, and we're just having already like outsourcing companies, we're having like joint companies, we have a lot of partnership, and we have that open partnership even among the companies, among the producers and of solutions, because one of them has something like hard solution, another one has a nice soft solution. They are keeping together and they're making very nice products. And we have already some initiatives who are making like everything the best, putting it all together in one drone, and it works.
So multiple different partners working together for one submission. Yeah,
yes,
right.
And we understand that again, that now like lessons learned, it's the main thing that we can exchange, and we can move it faster and bigger, and we are keep going improving it. And we understand that yes, really Mavic, DJI, they are very nice products, and yes, we are using them much, but as well we are developing our products very intensively now.
Yeah.
I will add to the point about replacing DJI quadcopters. There are, of course, a lot of statements coming from the Russian military defense companies and the MOD that they're working on solutions to phase out and ultimately replace a DJI quadcopter, that They're creating products that are just as good as the DJI products, but reality is very, very different. And the reality is actually seen even in Russian state media reports from the front, where the soldiers are seen with DJI quadcopters. There's simply no replacement for this product, which has basically won so many people over because of its simplicity and because of its operational record. And so there's a lot of efforts right now in the MOD, and they in fact may actually manufacture something down the line, just not right away.
And I think we're coming up on our time now. So that's correct, right, Ian? Well, anyway, if there's any closing statements either of you would like to make, either about the way contracting has worked for drones in these war, the importance of technology in general, any closing comments you have to which you'd like to share, please.
You want me to start, Sam?
Yes, that'd be great, Sam.
Okay. While we're talking about how Russian military is in fact inflexible when it comes to adopting some of the fast-paced, high-tech solutions from its own forces and volunteers, the military also showed flexibility in adopting some of the more sophisticated technological solutions, such as importing Iranian drones and using them on a massive scale against Ukraine. In fact, there's indications that Russia is going to manufacture thousands of these drones in the country and use them basically as cheap missiles against Ukrainian targets. And so while we talk about the Russian Ministry of Defense as a very vertical and inflexible organization when it comes to some technologies, it is still rather objective and realistic when it comes to adopting other technologies which already exist. And of course, it is strengthening its military to military cooperation with China, with Iran, and with a number of other countries. And so right now, at this point in the war, Russian military is showcasing its domestic solutions, imported solutions, and adopting a rather hands-off approach to some of the tactical solutions exhibited by the volunteers.
Thank you. And those Iranian drones are certainly something to be cautious of and to be aware of. Natalia?
I just want to say that each of us understands that defense technology is not about tomorrow, it's about today. And we understand that today these defense technologies in Ukraine, they are spreading and they are developing very much and very fast. And today is the big opportunity for Ukraine and so for our international partners to be in defense technologies, to have this possibility to invest, to develop, and to find that perfect, effective solutions that will be able to be unicorns, you know, in defense solutions, and we can be one of the possible like professionals and experts in what really works and that's really not works. So, and we are again very open for everybody to cooperate in Ukraine with defense technology. We have our project Brave One, and we are like one entry point for everybody who is working or who wants to work with defense tech in Ukraine. And again, we want to thank to everybody for all the support and help we are having and we're receiving, because really for us this war is very important, and we are like defending our countries, our families, and democracy of the whole world. We have to go on for making this war finish, to bring Ukraine closer to victory, and thanks to defense technologies, and not wasting the lives of our people.
Thank you all for taking time to join us today. Up next, my colleague Marcus Weisgerber will be interviewing Lieutenant General Alex Gernkovich, the commander for Air Force Central Command, to talk about how CENTCOM is modernizing in order to secure air dominance in a new era.